Here are 3 simple ways to retrieve a lipless crankbait when the water's cool. I'm talking about either early spring, late fall, or even during the winter. You can use a lipless crankbait to catch more bass. My name's Wesley Littlefield with YourBassGuy.com, and today I'm talking about some of my favorite retrieves with one of my favorite cool water lures. So I'm gonna strap the GoPro on and show you these 3 easy techniques that you can use to catch more bass. It's getting to be mid-fall here in Oklahoma, and it's time to start busting out the lipless crankbaits once again. Now, a lipless crankbait is really a cool water bait for various reasons. Usually, unlike a billed crankbait like a square bill or even the round bill like a deep diving crankbait, they've got a lot tighter action, which just looks more natural in cool water. And so that's typically why we go with a lipless crankbait. But there's 3 techniques that I use when fishing a lipless crankbait. And the first is probably what I use the most, and that's simply just casting it out there and I let it sink, because on a lipless crankbait, they actually sink, and I just slowly retrieve it. You wanna just be barely feeling the vibration of that crankbait as it bounces along the bottom and hits everything on the bottom. Now this is really good for rocky areas, hard bottom areas. This soft muddy bottom pond isn't the greatest place for a lipless crankbait, but lipless crankbaits are also really good in grassy areas. And you're gonna say, wait, what? It's got treble hooks. That's never a good combination with grass. And while that's usually the case, most of the time if you have like a steady retrieve, you'll feel the grass get on it and you'll give it a good pop, get the grass off, and then maybe another pop and get the grass off. And usually on those pops and then that fall, that's when a bass will strike, and that's when you just get a lot of bites in the grass fishing a lipless crankbait. So that's the first retrieve, just a steady retrieve. The second retrieve is super slow. So we're gonna cast it out and let it sink all the way to the bottom. Once it's done sinking, I'm gonna pop it pretty good, literally like drag it with my rod, and I can feel it vibrating, and then let it sink, reel up the slack, do it again, all the way down, and reel up the slack, let it sink back down. This just imitates really well, you know, a dying bait fish where it gets a little bit of energy and then it just falls to the bottom. And usually you'll feel that hit as it's falling down. You're typically not gonna get hit when you're pulling it here, but when you're letting it fall back down, that's when you're gonna get the most bites. So that's way number 2. Once again, you can mix this in pretty much anywhere you would the first one. It's really good, once again, in grass, just because you can really pop it through that grass a little bit better. So the last retrieve is actually kind of a hybrid in between the 2. So I'm gonna reel it, and then I'm gonna give it a good pop. And I'm gonna reel it, and then I might pop, and then reel it some more. So those are the 3 retrieves. Now, to really determine which one you should be using, you've just gotta play around with it with that day. You might be, you know, slowly retrieving for the first 5 minutes, and there's fish in the area and you're just not getting a bite. You might try speeding it up first, and if they're still not biting it after you speed it up, then slow it. Whoa, there was a bite right there. Then slow it back down. And if you're not getting bit either way of those, then try the, you know, medium speed, couple of pops, whatever. You're not getting any bites doing that, then we'll move to a yo-yo. You know, it just kind of depends. You can generally get a good idea how to fish it by the water temperature. So in cooler water, or water that is cooling, you tend to want to fish a little bit slower because the fish's metabolism is going to be slowing down. So typically that's the case. You want to fish just a little bit slower, slow down. If the water is warmer and rising, then you want to pick it up. So that might be the case in the early morning. You've got to fish it slow, but as that sun comes up and heats the water up a little bit, especially in the shallows, then you can speed up your reel a little bit. Choosing a color for your lipless crankbait, I tend to prefer to go real natural colors in the early fall and late spring, and of course during the winter. And then in like the early spring and mid to late fall, I'll actually use crawdad colored crankbait or a red and orange colored crankbait. And this, for whatever reason, it's never really been scientifically researched, but the fish just, they like that color at these times of the years for whatever reason it is. The crawfish either look like that, or it's just something that catches their eye that time of year. And so those are really, you know, I tend to stick with like a chrome, a silver, maybe a white, but most of the time it's just shiny that looks like a shad, or, you know, that's mostly what bait fish I've got around here. But, you know, if you've got other bait fish, that if you don't have shad and you've got other bait fish in your lake or river or whatever, then fish those colors, that color pattern. You know, in real dirty water, I'll especially look for ones that have rattles in them. And that just helps me, you know, doing all I can to attract that fish's attention. I mean, you can hear this one a little bit. And you can tell this is chocolate milk in here. But there's rattles there in this one. And that's just to get a little bit more attention of the fish. You know, it helps them lock in on it better, I think, in the muddy water. I mean, shoot, I can't see this when it drops 6 inches. But if it's a lot cleaner water, I'll go to even more translucent colors. And I won't use the you know, I'll find a little bit quieter one that doesn't have rattles. Unless I just find that the rattles are working, then I'll try to find one with rattles. But typically in that cleaner water, I don't go with rattles. Now that's how you fish a lipless crankbait. Now if you want to know how to actually tie one of these on and rig it up, I've got a video down below me that is absolutely worth checking out. Otherwise, I want you to always remember that education is important, but fishing is essential.